When you woke up this morning, you probably checked a weather forecast, looked at your bank account, and trusted the roads wouldn't collapse on your commute. We live in an era where we take environmental predictability completely for granted. But for 99.9% of human history, that security didn't exist. Existence was dictated entirely by unseen, uncontrollable forces. Imagine standing in ancient Egypt 4,000 years ago. Your life literally hung on a knife edge. Every single aspect of your survival depended entirely on the environment's shifting moods. Today, we often look at animal-headed statues and colorful temple carvings as quaint mythology. We assume these were just fairy tales told by people who lacked a thermometer or a satellite map. In reality, Egyptian religion was a highly sophisticated and systematic attempt to manage reality. It functioned as meteorology, politics, and survival strategy in a single package. These ancient communities clung to their temples because they were a desperately engineered system to assert control over an unpredictable universe. To see how this worked, we have to look at the Middle Kingdom, around 2000 BCE. For a farmer living along the Nile, life was bound to a single event, the inundation. This annual flood was the heartbeat of the civilization. It was also the greatest source of terror. This image captures the historical reality of that flood, water aggressively claiming the land right up to the pyramids. If the river rose too little, the crops withered and famine swept the country. If it rose too much, it washed away homes and livestock. Without modern tracking technology, the farmers saw these forces as divine entities manifested in the landscape. Even a common bird, like this ibis foraging in the reeds, was perceived as a participant in a saturated, hyper-divine environment. Survival relied on maintaining ma'at, a state of cosmic order. The Egyptians viewed this as a legalistic contract. If humans performed their duties through rituals and offerings, the gods were obligated to keep the Nile flooding and the sun rising. A receding river signaled a breakdown in this ritualistic relationship, indicating to every observer that the balance of the universe had been compromised. As these small river communities merged into a massive civilization, the problem of survival scaled up. Humanity was moving from small bands into an empire of thousands of strangers. Projects like these pyramids required a staggering level of human cooperation. How do you get thousands of people who don't know each other and are living in constant fear of famine to work toward a single massive goal? Psychology professor Dr. Ara Noranzan explains that as societies grew larger, they required big gods. These were powerful deities that monitored human behavior and demanded order on a grand scale. This diagram illustrates the mechanic. The big god acts as a moral, omniscient monitor. By believing that a divine force punished social deviance and rewarded order, thousands of disconnected individuals could be synchronized into a single workforce. This divine surveillance acted as a psychological adhesive. It provided the certainty required to maintain a massive workforce over centuries, ensuring the social contract remained intact even when environmental conditions were at their most terrifying. Egyptologist Dr. Jan Usman argues that this shared worldview is what turned disparate river communities into a resilient empire. The religion provided the binding logic for every canal dug and every stone moved. These rows of hieroglyphs are the literal records of that social technology. They document the precise rituals and rules that kept the machinery of the state functioning. The Egyptian obsession with their gods was actually a pragmatic obsession with social cohesion. They used the divine to manufacture the environmental predictability they lacked. Egypt sustained its civilization by anchoring its physical survival to this psychological architecture. It was a system of belief that transformed environmental chaos into a manageable, unified social order. When the Nile River failed to flood, crops died, and famine swept through ancient Egypt. In response to this environmental collapse, the state diverted immense resources to a surprising project, building monumental stone temples. Diverting thousands of laborers and dwindling food supplies to carve massive statues of pharaohs while the population starved appears to be a disastrous waste of resources driven by superstition. Recent anthropological research paints a different picture. This dual-axis timeline graph maps the historical correlation between drops in Nile River levels and state-funded building projects. right as the river levels crash, temple construction spikes. The Egyptian state treated temple construction as a high-stakes infrastructure program, synchronizing its labor and resources with environmental data to respond to the crisis. These construction sites operated as public works engines. They required vast amounts of organized labor, which allowed the state to mobilize a restless workforce in exchange for food. To feed that workforce, grain was pulled from royal storehouses and funneled through the temple networks. The food was distributed to the population, recorded as religious offerings. Religion functioned as the administrative operating system for the state. The gods provided the ideological framework required to distribute rations and maintain social structure during extreme climate stress. If their mythology was a rational survival mechanism wrapped in sacred cloth, it raises the question of whether we have actually outgrown the need for such structures. Modern society continues to rely on frameworks of absolute meaning to navigate the world. We have replaced ancient deities like Ra or Hapi with the economy, the stock market, and institutional science. We look to these invisible, higher systems to protect us from chaos, provide security, and define the moral boundaries of our society. Ancient Egyptians personified chaotic forces into stories to negotiate with them. We claim our systems are purely rational, yet we maintain a similar psychological dependence on their stability. We experience intense existential panic when our modern systems wobble. This vector chart mimics a market index plunging. When supply chains and digital networks stall, the reaction mirrors the dread of an ancient famine. Tracking financial metrics to ensure a stable future is a direct parallel to the ancient reliance on river deities. Both are attempts to secure order in an unpredictable universe. Examine your own reactions to unpredictability. Disruption of your daily routine triggers a profound biological discomfort. Your brain reflexively searches for patterns. You try to assign blame to random events or find a specific reason for a negative occurrence to try and restore a sense of control. The need to find order and agency in environmental noise is the same biological impulse that drove the construction of the temples at Karnak and Luxor. An Egyptian priest watching the horizon for a flood was using the same cognitive hardware you use when you scan for stability in your career or relationships. We live in high-tech environments, but our brains are ancient engines trying to appease the unseen forces that control our survival. Human anxiety remains consistent. We are simply scanning a different horizon with the same evolutionary tools. The transition to modern science provided objective certainty, but it removed the personal, interactive quality of the ancient worldview. We traded a worldview where we could negotiate with the environment for one governed by indifferent physical laws. This created a mismatch. We have a brain that evolved to find intention in nature, yet we live in a universe that operates without any specific concern for us. While our modern systems make us physically safer, they can leave us feeling more isolated. We no longer believe in a universe that is actively watching over our survival. The price of our scientific independence was the loss of a universe that we felt we could communicate with. There is a connection between an ancient Egyptian whispering a prayer for the sunrise and you hoping for stability in your world tomorrow. This strive for order is present in our architecture, our laws, and our daily psychology. We have traded stone pillars for data streams. Every attempt to organize your life or build something lasting echoes a civilization that refused to let chaos win. These stone deities represent humanity's most ambitious attempt to organize the universe. They are monuments to a civilization that refused to surrender to the dark. Does knowing that the ancient obsession with gods was a survival strategy change how you view history? Or do our modern secular systems serve us better? Let me know in the comments.